Hayakawa. Money Daily starts right now. Let's talk about debt transparency, accountability and reporting in Africa. A new report that was released by the Johns Hopkins China-Africa Research Initiative showed Zambia's debts to China are actually much higher than previously reported. The official reports amount to $3.4 billion, but Carey estimates that it stands at $6.6 billion, complicating the country's recovery plans. Debt transparency and reporting has been a huge concern for other countries like Mozambique, Cameroon, and also Chad, who have faced lots of issues with hidden debt. The African Development Bank Group points out concerns of hidden debts, saying this: limited transparency with little accurate data on loan conditions create incentives for kickbacks and inflated project costs. According to AFDB, the growing hidden debt to China is as high as 50% of total Chinese overseas lending. Countries have, however, launched projects in support of debt and risk management, monitoring and reporting. For example, in Sierra Leone, they have drafted the Public Debt Management Act, and in Sudan, where they updated their debt management systems with international standards and are training staff in modern debt management techniques. Now, earlier on, I had a chat with Executive Director of the African Forum and Network on Debt and Development, and I started by asking him how inaccurate debt reporting affects a country's economic progress.
It affects us in two ways. One is those who are supposed to hold government to account for public finances do not know a picture of what is happening. It also affects how funders and investment partners can actually make decisions in what to invest in the country. And thirdly, citizens do not know how much the government is committing themselves to public debt, especially through borrowing.
What does inaccurate debt reporting mean for debt sustainability?
You know, government can't plan, and that means if they're not aware of how much is being borrowed and how much is being reported through the Ministries of Finance or the Debt Management Office, it's very difficult to plan, and you can end up receiving some very nasty surprises, as we've seen in some African countries. Secondly, it undermines the accountability aspect that parliamentarians are supposed to play in holding government into account. And thirdly, it takes away the rights of citizens to understand how much they are being asked to shoulder in terms of the debt burdens through debt servicing.
What strides are there being made right now to have debt reporting more transparent and accurate?
At AFRODAD, we've championed debt transparency through our African Borrowing Charter, which calls for the establishment of debt management offices, which are independent of the Ministries of Finance, and they're supposed to keep track of what is happening in terms of government borrowing. The second is a strengthened and increased role of parliamentary oversight in terms of parliamentarians being able to task ministers of finance in terms of what they're borrowing. And thirdly, it's to use policies and the legal framework through debt contraction to ask governments to publish all the details of their borrowings and loan contracts that they take on.
How can we hold power to account when it comes to debt management? Because last week we were all surprised to see that Zambia's debt levels are actually close to double than that was reported with the previous administration. So how do we avoid this from happening again?
So I think one of the things as civil society organizations like AFRODAD have been championing for is an African accountability mechanism. And we've defined what this looks like in our Harare Declaration, which calls for greater accountability and leadership by governments to actually put in place mechanisms that publish data and also that and allows citizens to participate in the loan contraction process in understanding where governments are borrowing from, what they're using the money for, and how much are they committing in terms of the budgets to servicing this debt. So, and finally, that there are revenue generation opportunities from the debt, because one of the biggest challenges is that the debt that's being borrowed is not actually generating revenues, which is causing these sorts of challenges.
Now, a quick look at other stories making headlines.